Hi everybody, John here again. Last week, Sheriff at Julius Jabbar showed his Jimi Hendrix collection. I thought it was really interesting to see, you know, the ones that he had, and yeah, it wasn't long before into his video that he started showing records that I just hadn't seen, never heard before. I'm not really one for buying new reissues. I don't spend an awful lot of money on newly released records, but I've got a few that I've collected as a kid and also through the years being a record collector. There were one or two that I have that I didn't see in his collection, so I thought it might be fun to show some of the ones that I got. Here's my batch anyway, so I thought I'd work my way through them and talk about the records that I have. Now, I first got into Jimi Hendrix, yeah, I guess I would have been about 15, I suppose. I remember it was the time when Dire Straits were really in sort of people's minds, because they were sort of a big band and they were releasing some sort of big hits, and people were very sort of, you know, into the Dire Straits guitar sound. And as a sort of a young teenager, I was very impressed, and I wanted to go and have guitar lessons and everything like that. Now, my sister, my next sister in age, along from me, had a boyfriend who, well, it's fair to say his record collection had a huge impact on me. One day he came round to my parents' house with a record, and he gave it to me. It was the Electric Ladyland album, and you know, he said, you want to listen to guitar music, this is about as good as it gets. And he wasn't wrong. You know, when he gave me that record, it sort of changed my life significantly, and I haven't really looked back since. And so yeah, whenever I went out, I would look for Hendrix records, and in those days, it's crazy to think, but you know, records towards the latter end of the 80s, people just didn't want them anymore. They were just thrown out with the trash. And so I would pick records up at jumble sales, car boot sales, for pennies, you know, just ridiculous. I got the majority of my T-Rex albums, David Bowie albums, and Hendrix albums from those times. And well, there you go. It's an odd story because they're highly sought after now, aren't they? I really do think that CDs will have a similar kind of value sometime in the next few decades. It's hard to see now because CDs are everywhere. You see them in thrift stores and charity shops, you know, for nothing, and it's hard to believe that anyone would ever really want them again. But I really do think they're going to have a resurgence, perhaps in about 20 years time maybe. Anyway, so I'll start off by showing this. This is the first Experience album. I bought this in America. It's actually an American pressing. Yeah, it's funny to think that this was one of the last ones that I actually got of his. I lived in California about 5 or 6 years ago now, and yeah, it was always interesting to see what I could turn up there, and records that, you know, were quite exotic in Essex, where I'm from, were, you know, not so hard to find in the US, especially California, which is, you know, Northern California, where around San Francisco, where a lot of the sort of the 60s psychedelia hippie movement was happening. You could find you know, records by Jefferson Airplane, Hendrix, of course, you know, bands of that ilk, that time, were, you know, not hard to come by at all. Anyway, so that's the first album. That's the back. Now, my copy of Axis Bolt of Love is now sadly only a reissue, but this is one of the ones that I would have picked up in jumble sale in England in the late 80s. It's on Track Records, but yeah, I think they reissued a lot of sort of late 60s albums in the 80s to sort of try and encourage people to, I guess, yeah, reinvestigate some of the older stars, perhaps. I don't know. So here's my copy of Electric Ladyland that yeah, my sister's boyfriend gave me. This was, you know, incredible, absolutely incredible. It's fair to say that a lot of this went, you know, way over my head, but it really did open my mind, and yeah, a double album. I really got into this, and in fact, a lot of these Hendrix records, I just played them and played them and played them, perhaps a little bit too much, because I seldom listen to Hendrix these days, but you know, they really did have a huge effect on me. This is a UK issue of the sort of split version of Electric Ladyland. This is part 1, Electric Ladyland part 1. I don't know why, but yeah, I think in the States they issued Electric Ladyland in part 1 and part 2 copies, I guess to make it cheaper for people, I don't know. But this is part 1. I don't have part 2, sadly, but hey, I got the original album anyway, so it doesn't matter. But yeah, I picked this up to go along. Band of Gypsies. This is an album that I had on CD when I was younger. I remember buying it from Woolworths, and yeah, I actually got this copy. This year, last year, the year before, perhaps, I can't remember, but it's a new addition to my records anyway. Jimi Hendrix was never really very satisfied with this stage. I think it didn't last very long, but no, it's interesting. A short while ago, how many years ago is it now? 2 or 3, 4 years ago, I guess, I met up with James Griffiths in Lancaster, and I bought this record for my collection at a record stall in his local market. Now, yeah, I already had a copy of it, but it was a copy that I picked up as a kid for not very much at all, and made my own cover because it didn't really come with a cover. It was on Track Records. Never very satisfied with that, so it was really nice to kind of get a proper copy. This is The Cry of Love. It was the first posthumous album of Hendrix music that was released, I believe, of his sort of studio recordings. Jimi Hendrix, Isle of Wight. Now, some of Jimi Hendrix's live records were, you know, are just amazing. They're, you know, especially the good ones on a good day when you got Jimi Hendrix. It was just world-changing guitar playing that you're kind of experiencing. Hendrix in the West. Again, this one and the last one, the ones that I would have bought home from the jumble sale. Lovely to have on Polydor. Yeah, it's funny to look at these things because for the longest time I used to listen to perhaps Hendrix and only Hendrix for a very long time. It won me a lot of kudos when I was sort of a young, late teens, early 20s. I think a lot of kids in my sort of era, I suppose, were into the sort of the alternative rock music of the time, like the goth rock and the post-punk and stuff like that. It was never really my thing at the time, but I kind of got some kind of respect because I was, you know, a thorough fan of Jimi Hendrix. People always thought that was cool. So, smash hits. I'm fortunate to have 2 copies of this. One is one that I would have picked up again from just a charity shop or a jumble sale. Didn't really have charity shops in the 80s in England. But one is on Polydor. And I think this is probably my newer one. This is on Track Records. Good compilation. They're pretty much the same in the front, but they've got different backs. Now, listening to these records when I did back in the day, yeah, it was before the internet, so I didn't know, for instance, that Jimi Hendrix Experience only made 3 albums. The information just wasn't available for me. I probably could have found a book in the library about it, but it wasn't something that you just kind of had instant access to, that kind of information like you do now with the internet. And so, yeah, I would have listened to these compilations, not really understanding that they were comps. I would listen to the live albums, not knowing that, you know, these were ones that were released after he was dead. You know, it's yeah, probably in the last 10 years that I've sort of kind of understood any of that sort of thing. Jimi Hendrix Experience. It's a live gig, beautifully recorded. It's only got 4 tracks, but the sound of this is just so great. There's 2 parts of this. I think this is the first part. I don't have the second part, but it'd be nice to get hold of one day. There's a really, really good version of Sunshine of Your Love on this, really crisp. You know, it's like his guitar is right here. Lovely record. Now this is, I believe, a compilation on Polydor. I was looking up this last night just to so that I could talk a little bit about it. It's a record that I've had for, you know, forever, and I've always thought, well, you know, this is part of his canon, but I don't think it is. I think it's actually a compilation, and it's got a few unusual tracks. Some of the tracks on here are, yeah, they're from the first Experience albums. There's a track on here from some of the live albums that I've just showed, but also Cry of Love. There's a few tracks on here as well, and some of the other ones that came out afterwards. Now, I don't have any more of those sort of Hendrix, what should we say, studio albums that came out afterwards. I can't think of their names right now, but yeah, it was interesting to see Sherv's ones that he showed. But the next ones I'm going to show are sadly ones that were, I think, yeah, they were kind of exploiting his fame. So before Hendrix became, you know, the big famous guitar player that he was sort of known for today, and before he formed Experience, before he'd met Chas Chandler, he sort of was a guitarist, sort of session, I guess we'd say session guitarist, I suppose. But he played often in sort of people's bands, and he played with some pretty big names like the Isley Brothers, Little Richard, Don Covey, and more besides. But sadly, I think before, yeah, not just shortly before he kind of moved to England, or before he met Chas Chandler and moved to England, he started working for this guy, Curtis Knight, and he kind of got involved in some sort of contractual work for this guy, Curtis Knight. And Curtis Knight is not really a name that many people know of, I don't think, but I mean, he made a lot of records, but it seems to be, in retrospect, that you look at his catalogue and it's all based on the fact that he once had Jimi Hendrix in his band. There's a guy called Ed Calpin, who is sort of the record producer for this guy Curtis Knight, and yeah, he sort of made a lot of recordings. Some of it was just jam sessions, some of it was sort of experimental stuff just going on in the studio. And he took every opportunity when Jimmy had died to release a lot of this. You know, he probably made quite a lot of money, and the records that he released were often dressed up to look like it was the kind of 60s psychedelic rock that Hendrix is known for. But more often than not, it wasn't. It was sort of stuff that he was sort of working with the sort of the soul R&B groups. So I'm going to show you some of those now. And these ones, again, they're ones that I picked up. This is perhaps one of the more famous ones, Eternal Fire of Jimi Hendrix with Curtis Knight. You can see, but there's pictures on the back here. Hendrix with Curtis Knight and the bands, and there's songs on here aren't always, you know, the best recorded, or at least they're poorly reproduced anyway. But there's one or two tracks that they say are sort of indicative of well, they're sort of pivotal in terms of you can hear Hendrix's sound sort of developing. There's a track here called How Would You Feel, for instance, and yeah, You Don't Want Me, for instance, is another good one apparently. This is another one released by Ed Calpin, Jimi Hendrix, Birth of Success. Quite like the cover. And on here you've got tracks like Sugar Pie Honey Bunch, that sort of thing. You know, it's not, he does a cover of Satisfaction by the Stones. It's not the type of music that most people associate Hendrix with, but it makes for interesting listening. But it purely was just, you know, exploitation, I think. I think this is a relatively new addition to my collection. This is a Dutch release. I can't find out much information about this, except it's all sort of live recordings, sort of like a hodgepodge of live recordings. Room Full of Mirrors, Purple Haze, Sunshine of Your Love, Fire. There's some quite poor typography on the back here. I don't know if you can see this here. First track on side 2, track 1 says Leading Heart. Obviously that should that should read Leading Heart like it does on the front, but it's a typo. And not only is it a typo, but you know, there's no tab space between the 1 and a dot and the beginning of the song title. I mean, I don't know, who releases stuff like that with mistakes on? Incredible. Still, yeah, these are quite interesting to listen to, I suppose. This was released in 1981. Again, another Ed Calpin publication. On here we've got Money, Hang On Sloopy, and Bright Lights, Big City, and a few more. Printed in Germany, this. Here's a compilation that I got. Now, this is the first in 3. It's a double album, double compilation, and in many ways it has many of the tracks of the last sort of 3 or 4 records that I've shown. Woolly Bully, Left Alone, Miss Pitiful, I think it's an Otis Redding song, wasn't it? Sugar Pie Honey Bunch, and so on and so forth. Now this came as a package of 3, so it's Guitar Giants Volume 1, there's also Volume 2 and Volume 3, but again it's all still the stuff that you know, was recorded by Ed Calpin. There you go. I don't have the other 2. I wondered if I should look out for them, but need them. And then this is Jimi Hendrix with Curtis Knight. I think this is also a relatively new record that sort of come my way in recent years. Again, an Ed Calpin thing. Does a copy of Day Tripper on here. Simon Says. More of the same, really. So that's my Jimi Hendrix collection. I hope that was of some interest to somebody. Take a look at Sherv's video. He shows some amazing records. Yeah, you can't help but be really kind of impressed by some of the albums that he pulls out and shows. Sort of towards the midway and halfway through. Beautiful covers. I don't know much about the material on those records. I guess if they're relatively modern releases, it's probably quite nicely remastered and that sort of thing. But no, I'm not one for going out to buy these sort of things new, purely because I'm a skinflint. I'll wait until I find them used somewhere else, or if somebody wants to send me any, that's always good. Okay, everybody, well, have a good weekend, and look out for my next video. Thanks, bye.